BYD just cut prices on cars that were already the cheapest competitive EVs on the planet. And somehow that's the scary part. May 9th. BYD wakes up, looks at its ocean lineup, the seagull, the dolphin, the seal, the whole family, and just cuts prices. Across the board. Not a trim here or a rebate there. A coordinated, simultaneous reduction hitting every single model in one of China's best-selling EV series. I'll be honest, I did not think they'd move this fast. 6 months ago, I said BYD would hold pricing steady through the first half of 2025 because margins were already thin. I was wrong, and the speed of this correction tells you something important. This isn't a promotion. This is a declaration. BYD is essentially saying, we can go lower, and we're willing to prove it. The Ocean lineup already starts well under the equivalent of $15,000 for the entry Seagull. After these cuts, we're talking about territory that makes a base Volkswagen Polo in Europe look like a luxury purchase. That comparison isn't hyperbole. It's the actual competitive reality BYD is trying to force on the global conversation. Here's the thing people miss when they talk about BYD cutting prices. BYD isn't really fighting Tesla right now. Tesla's Model 3 sits in a different bracket. The brands genuinely bleeding from this move are the second-tier Chinese players. Your Nida, your Leapmotor, your smaller SAIC sub-brands. Companies that built their entire value proposition around being almost as good as BYD for slightly less money. That gap just closed. Or more precisely, BYD just stepped on it. I'd argue this is a deliberate squeeze play. BYD has the vertical integration. They make their own batteries, their own chips, their own motors, so they can absorb a margin hit that would genuinely threaten a smaller competitor's survival. Think of it like Toyota in the 1980s undercutting Detroit not because Toyota was desperate, but because Toyota could. The Ocean lineup is BYD's volume engine. Seagull and Dolphin alone account for a massive chunk of monthly registrations in China. When those prices drop, every brand sitting just above or just below them has to respond or watch their sales figures crater. And not everyone can respond. That's the point. Now I want to push back on my own excitement here, because there's a version of this story that's less triumphant. Price cuts at scale can mean one of two things. You're so efficient you can afford to lower prices and still print money, or demand is softening and you need to stimulate it. BYD sales numbers have been strong, genuinely strong, but China's overall consumer sentiment has been complicated in 2025. Property market hangover, youth unemployment pressure, people being more cautious with big purchases. So I think the honest answer is, it's probably both. BYD is operationally capable of absorbing these cuts, and they want to make sure the order books stay full heading into the second half of the year. There's also a geopolitical layer here. With Chinese EVs facing tariff walls in Europe and a complicated path into the US market, the domestic market has to carry more weight. Keeping volume high at home isn't just good business. It funds the R&D and the international expansion simultaneously. So when I see a price cut this broad, I read it as BYD fortifying its home base while it figures out the rest of the world. Here's where I land. This price cut is real leverage, not a panic move. BYD is using its cost structure as a weapon in a way that Western automakers genuinely cannot replicate right now. Stellantis can't do this. Volkswagen definitely can't do this. They're still trying to figure out software. The Ocean lineup was already the benchmark for value in mass-market EVs globally, and these cuts extend that lead. If you're a buyer in China right now, this is an extraordinary moment. You're getting technology and range figures that would have been mid-premium territory 3 years ago, at prices that are frankly hard to justify arguing against. What comes next? I expect at least 2 or 3 competitors to announce emergency incentive packages within the next 4 to 6 weeks. Some will be genuine cuts. Some will be finance rate games dressed up as price cuts. Watch for that distinction. And I'd watch BYD's next monthly sales release very closely. If volume jumps meaningfully after May 9th, that confirms the strategy is working exactly as intended. If it's flat, then we'll have a more interesting conversation about whether even BYD has limits to how much it can stimulate demand through price alone. I genuinely don't know which way that goes, but I know I'll be watching. If you think I'm reading this wrong, if you think this is a stress signal and not a power move, tell me in the comments. I read every one. And subscribe if you want the follow-up when BYD's May sales numbers drop.